Hello, everyone. I'm Buck Woody from Microsoft. Welcome to this section, Ask the Experts, Unlocking Better SQL Performance and Scalability. We're so excited to have you here today. I don't know about you, but I'm just overwhelmed with all of the amazing stuff that I've been learning here in Build. Oh my gosh, as I saw all the announcements, I mean, I work here and I didn't know all of this stuff that was coming. It's just amazing. I'm a data scientist on the Azure data team, and I'm joined by a couple of experts that'll be helping me today. And we've got some other folks that you'll be asking questions and they'll get you an answer. You're just going to type right in the window there for your questions. They'll then push them out and we'll answer them verbally, or you may actually see something written. So let me introduce our fellow experts that we have here. We've got Darren with us, and we've also got David. Darren, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Darren Frymouth from Intel Corporation. I am a solutions architect in the focusing on Microsoft and SQL Server.
Excellent. And David, before I go to you, I want to make sure we cover something really quick here. We've got a digital code of conduct here, and it's also posted right there in your chat window. So as you're looking there, please make sure you follow this. We want to make this a safe, welcoming space for everyone so that we can all get our questions answered and do it sort of quickly. So as I mentioned, I'm Buck Woody. We've heard from Darren. I think it's time to hear from David Pless.
Hi, my name is David Pless. I'm a senior program manager. I focus on the storage engine and especially SQL Server 2022. I have a couple of items on the query store. Query store hints is one of my features as well. And I had a background with Azure virtual machines.
Yeah, and you've been doing this a little while, haven't you?
Just a little bit in a day. You know, Buck, I have a question for you.
You already
Can I jump in with a question?
You already have a question.
I have a question. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, for those of you online, this is an unscripted moment here where we've got somebody jumping in with a question ahead of time, and it's from our own experts. I feel like this is going to get me, but let's try this. By the way, for those of you watching online, use the Q&A box to ask questions. They'll appear once they're approved, and someone will answer verbally or someone will type you an answer. So with great trepidation, I say, David, go ahead with your question.
So this is an Azure Arc question.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
So folks are wondering what's the difference between the various Azure Arc, what's an Arc, and what's an Arc?
What's the difference between Arc and Arc? Okay. Let me help with that a little bit. That one I can do. Thanks, David, for that. For those of you that are developers, for those of you data professionals, we've got a few ways to work on premises and in the Microsoft Azure platform. And people have asked us this a lot. What they came to us was they said, hey, look, I really like those cool security features you have in Azure, and I really like the ability to monitor and manage and have logging and all of that. I have a few Azure assets. I've got some stuff on premises, and I want to be able to do both in each. And I also want to track licenses. In fact, David, I was working with an organization today. I called them up and we're working through, I'm helping them, it's an NGO, and I'm helping them with some things. And I said, where are your licenses and things so we can get all this? And they have no idea. They had a sticker from a laptop that has Windows XP on it. And they said, is this SQL? And I'm like, oh my gosh. So people have asked us, can they track that? Well, we came up with this idea called Arc, and you can see why it's an arc between one place and another. And there's three kind of distinct offerings that you might see there. The first is called Azure Arc Enabled Infrastructure. And basically, this is a widget, a service that you're going to install on your Windows or Linux computer. It will then converse with Azure, and you don't make any changes to the box other than that. And it will send back telemetry, and it will send over things that it can do. So that's the first part, Azure Arc Enabled Infrastructure. And we have that both for, hardware. We have it for Kubernetes. And we have it for Azure Stack, which is the box that you can get. Now, we also have this thing called Azure Arc Enabled Services. Well, what in the world is this? Well, what this is a bunch of different services that you can run inside Kubernetes. So Kubernetes is the ability to wrangle sort of containers and so on. So you would handle the Kubernetes side. We send down an operator, it links up, and now you have a lot of things. Azure App Service, Azure Functions, Azure Logic Apps, Azure API Management, Azure Event Grid, and more. Then we have this Azure Arc enabled machine learning. Once again, Kubernetes, and you get the machine learning stuff, even the training and the inferencing engines. And then the one that's the most important to us, David, and the one you might be asking about, is Azure Arc enabled data services. Now, the Azure Arc enabled data services is two parts. Let's say you want Azure SQL, but you want it on-prem. So you want to be able to do it on premises, but you want to use Azure SQL. So we have the ability for you once again to use Kubernetes, and that's Azure Arc enabled data services. But wait, there's more. It's machine. It's by the way, it's MI. It's the managed instance. But wait, there's more. Some folks are using PostgreSQL, and it's become quite popular, as you know, been around for a very long time. And they said, hey, we want the Azure stuff, but we want it inside Postgres. We want Postgres inside our own organization. So that's kind of what that is. In fact, I've got a link. I'm going to click a button here and just kind of do this. And there's a link there if you like that will be part of that. All right. So we do have another question though in the queue. So I'm gonna put this out to the entire panel, because Darren, I think you can speak to this, and David, I think you can speak to this, and I've got some strong opinions. The question is, where can I learn more about how to improve SQL Server query performance? I'm a medium level developer. Okay, well, listen, we don't have any medium level developers here. We just have developers. You're working with data. You're a professional. So let's start with you, Darren. Where's a good place to go learn about maybe making our system perform a little better?
As far as looking in the system itself or tools externally?
Yeah, I think
they're both
about performance, right?
I think yes, and yes, right?
Yeah, I think it's all of them. Yeah. So I think there's a hardware component. I think there's a software component, and I think there's more, right?
Well, internally, I mean, the first place is obviously the execution plans, right? I mean, that's you want to learn how to read the execution the plans and sort of follow those. That's the first thing I would, about when you're turning queries, right? How to learn that? That's I think there's lots of resources out there, and maybe some of the Microsoft academies and things like that.
Yeah, there's a good friend of mine, Grant Fritchie. He works for Redgate Software, Grant Fritchie. And if you look up, he's got a free book you can get on. He's probably, David, has anybody written a better query plan book than Grant Fritchie? And that you can go learn for free on how to do this as well. David, do you have some other thoughts on performance tuning? A place they can go learn more.
So there's a kind of going along with what Darren was saying, there's definitely a few resources to get into taking a statement and seeing, are you following best practices, and then using the dynamic management views to monitor impact. I would say one of the great ways, though, it's a wonderful tool. So it's a fantastic tool, is Query Store.
Yeah.
If you really want to have an idea of what is the history, it's persisted. It's been in the products at SQL Server 2016, and it's gotten better each and every release. SQL Server 2022 is no exception. If I want to know what statements have been run, what the impact of those statements are, the different execution plans and the history of those execution plans, and we have quite a bit of features gated at the database compatibility level 160 that leverages Query Store further.
Yeah.
What a great way to start, right, Bach?
Yeah, I think so. And so if I were to go out to my favorite search engine named Bing, and I were to type in SQL Server Query Store, I'd probably come back with some data exposed episodes.
Oh, yeah.
I'd probably come back with some YouTube videos. I'd probably come back with some other things where we do that. So that'd be a great place. This question here says, where can I learn more about how to improve the performance? That's a place. I also want to do a quick shout out here to a link I just put in on the data community. So the data community is something that is user groups around the world for SQL Server. And I happen to know they're all virtual right now. So I happen to know one group is actually doing performance tuning using the built-in tools. So if you go out there and just research that you'd come up with that as well. So that's fantastic. And then there's a question that says, what are the best practices to analyze the performance of a query? My query is taking so long to run now, and it used to not do that. Well, that's that same kind of answer, I think. So the query store is a great place to learn. And then the query plans, as Darren pointed out, those are the two places that you'll absolutely want to go take a look at that. All right, we got another question here. Can you use the ledger feature to implement event sourcing patterns, or is that not the use case? Wow, it's a great question.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting way to think about it. I think we talk about ledger, and just to make sure everybody on the call, we got a bunch of people on the call, and some folks may not know what ledger is. The idea is it's using, because you got to say blockchain right to be cool, don't you, David? You got to say the word blockchain, but that's exactly what it is. It's a set of tables. There's some system tables, and you can actually persist those into secure storage such that when you make a change or you make an entry or you make a deletion or whatever inside any table, if you've enabled the ledger feature, it makes a checksum, essentially a hash value off of those values and stores it at the end of a chain. And then you can see if that chain ever breaks. If anybody ever changes something without you knowing, you'll be able to compare the digest of what's happening now versus what has been recorded, add those two together, and if they're not right, you'd get that back. So so the event sourcing, if you mean by that, Starbucks uses this, interestingly enough, to track their coffee. If you scan the little barcode on your Starbucks card, it will show you where the beans were grown from that cup of coffee and the truck that drove it there and everything, and that's all using blockchain to do that. So it's an interesting use case, isn't it, Dave? Do you have any more thoughts on that?
Yeah, so what I'm hearing you say is I have a piece of data and I'm leveraging Ledger to provide an ability, correct me where this is wrong, Buck, that I can trust it, but if I'm handing it over to you, you can trust it as well. Is that what I'm hearing you say, using blockchain?
Exactly. And again, blockchain is not for tamper resistance. That's not what it's for at all. It's tamper evident. So it will prove to you that somebody, and it's out of both of our hands. You and I can't get to the secure storage to alter the blockchain. And so when we compare it, we can see the exact moment that it changed. So we could go back and say, no, I sent you the money. So for event sourcing, let's assume for a moment I'm a manufacturer of pharmaceuticals, and I want to make sure I know each time the drug components were touched. We can do that within a blockchain, and that's pretty common as well. We've got another question here. Obviously, the capacity for on-premise depends on oops, that one got moved over on me while I was reading there. Depends on the compute storage power of on-premises appliance. But what I heard today is there might be an offering that Synapse Link will allow awesome capabilities to leverage the compute power of Synapse to query the data from there, hence leveraging the compute of Synapse. I want to know how that will work. Data stored locally on local data storage, SQL engine will be local. How will the data in essence be available in Synapse to analyze? Oh, that's a really cool feature. Synapse, as you know, is our large-scale data mart, data warehouse, data lake in the cloud, and it has both the ability to do things in Spark, and it has the ability to do things in SQL. And through a feature we have now in SQL 2022 called Synapse Link, it gives you near real-time conversion of that data, or rather copies of that data on both sides. So I don't have to store all that data locally to query it. Really incredible. If you type the words Bob Ward Synapse Link demo, he shows a really cool demo. He uses Texas in it, Darren. Darren, where are you at right now, by the way? Where are you located physically?
I'm in Oregon.
Oregon, okay. And David, where are you?
I'm in Florida.
Oh, okay. Yeah, me too. I'm in Tampa, Florida. So we're we're in the future, so it takes a minute for Darren to answer because we're 3 hours ahead down here in Florida. So that's pretty awesome. Okay, great question. Let's go back over to the pool and see if we have anything else.
Yeah, Buck, I dropped down a link for the Azure Synapse link for SQL there.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you very much. Here's a fun one. I think we can all answer these. Darren, David, and I will all take a crack at this. What are some of the most common causes of poor SQL performance? So, Darren, why don't you take a crack first?
I would say one of the things you need to do is make sure you've got the right indexes and statistics for the things you're trying to query.
Okay. All right.
That seems to be one of the big things. Make sure that you're the engine has or the optimizer has what it needs to do the job. What else?
Well, you've seen like things being underpowered, like people are putting production queries and production reporting and production data warehouse and all that on the same box, and it's got no memory and it's underpowered in the processor. So, Darren, I think you all have some stuff to help with that, don't you?
Yeah. So memory is a good point. Another thing is just getting to the data, getting the data off the disk, being able to read and write that data to and from the memory as quick as possible. So so there's obviously having fast I/O, fast hard drives, such as maybe Optane drives, or using PMEM.
Now, wait a minute. Did you say, Darren? Did you say Optane? Is that what you said?
I did say Optane. Yes.
Okay. Tell me more about that, because I'm not familiar with that technology.
So Optane is a technology that uses a different technology than SSD. It's has a much higher endurance than SSD, and it's a lot faster than an SSD technology. And it's byte addressable, so you can read and write non-volatile memory in a byte addressable form, which makes it really fast for some of these database applications.
Yeah, that's
so one of the good uses, I guess, is also potentially, making sure you can harden your logs and commit your logs as quickly as possible in the form of persisted logs. What else? Just drawing a blank. Persisted log buffer. That's what I was looking for. What else?
Yeah, you're getting in the persistent memory space there a little bit. What are the? You said PMEM. So what is persistent memory from an Intel perspective?
Persistent memory from an Intel perspective is basically it's a DIMM-like device. It's a device that plugged onto the same bus as DIMMs that gives you a non-volatile memory that can be used to add additional memory. So PMEM allows you to have some larger memory capacities per socket when you're working with memory. I think let's see it. With the PMEM modules, you can have up to 4 terabytes of PMEM and 2 terabytes of RAM per socket. So, on a 2-socket server, that's up to 12 terabytes of RAM that you could have. Gives you, but more importantly, it gives you that non-volatile kind of area to write stuff.
Okay.
And keep it persistent.
Very good. So really quick, so I'll answer that question as well. Common areas of performance impact. One most certainly is TempDB. Now we've definitely improved TempDB over the releases. Say in particular SQL Server 2016, we've improved it in every version. 2017, 2019, and 2022, we have concurrent GAM and SGAM updates, very similar to the concurrent PFS updates that we've had in the past. Impactful enough to where who knows, we may even have to rewrite our best practices around TempDB.
I
There's
think
enough
you're right.
impact there.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I also posted a couple of other things in the query. The most common causes. The number one is always query design, right? People going after more than they should, people going after the wrong stuff, and so on. And then, as Darren pointed out, index design is next. Doing, indexes are the watering can on a bonsai tree. They can make or break everything you do. Indexes hurt for writes, and they really help for reads. So if you've designed them properly, you're gonna get a better. And then, of course, hardware sizing. I've seen so many people try to fit a 10-pound pig in a 5-pound bag, and you just can't often do that. And there's some questions there as well around high availability enhancements. Hopefully we've answered those. In fact, I've got some links. If we could have the folks push those links out to the to sort of the published area for me there. There's a whole bunch of, there's so many new things that we've got going. And Peter also, by the way, said perf calculations in your where clause. Oh my gosh, yeah, that can absolutely do that. So we've got that. We're about 8 or 9 minutes away, so we're doing really well for time and all that. We've got another one here that says one of the problems one faces when working with both on-premises SQL Server database and Azure SQL database is the T-SQL code base is not the same, especially on the DDL side. Is there any plan to make the T-SQL code base uniform between the two? And I'm going to ask David to help me answer this one. In large part, they are. You'll find some things out now on the DDL. That's data definition language for those that are not used to that acronym. But the data definition language, wherever you're down touching hardware, if you're down touching something on the hard drive or something like that, obviously that's going to be different in a provided environment as opposed to an on-premise environment. We don't give you access, for instance, to the hard drives or the memory or the CPU inside a database offering. So that will be slightly different there. But David, talk to us a little bit more about some of the differences in the DDL between Azure SQL and on-premises SQL.
So I would have to go look up the differences as it is right now. But let me, before we take that exercise, we have been closing the gap over a long period of time. So if I rewound the years, I remember that there was a number of blockers I would run into. Our migration tools expose that information.
Yeah.
And then the feedback from customers, and in particular, ISV scenarios, just common mission critical type environments where I would love to go to manage instance or Azure SQL database, but there's this one scenario or a handful of scenarios. It really usually is not a ton of scenarios. It's usually a small set of scenarios per application or database. That is the blocker. That is either requiring a customer to go to a virtual machine, which is kind of the landing spot in Azure if you have those blockers, or you take the exercise of rewriting that part of the code. That gap has dramatically shortened between those two over the years, and our migration tools do a really good job of highlighting that.
Well, thank you very much. Listen, one of the things that Rob did for us there, I've got a whole bunch of links that I prepped right before we did this, because a lot of you are asking, we got so many great questions and we're going to run out of time here, but a lot of them are answered in these links. We announced today the Intelligent Data Platform. I know folks are going to have some questions around that. And also we announced the SQL Server 2022 public preview, which has in it a lot of these improvements and so on. So I put a what's new in SQL 2022. It's a video series done on our Data Exposed channel. My good friend Bob Ward and so on did some things there. And I've actually got a bunch of our demo scripts out there that you can see as well. I want to run through some of the other questions that we have and bucketize them for Darren, David, and myself, just to
Did you say bucketize?
I did these for a little bit for us. So a couple questions. What are some of the tools available in Azure to improve, monitor SQL database performance? I'm so glad you asked that. There's a ton. They're built right in. If you go to the main portal now, if you haven't been in there in a while, you should go in there and take a look at what's in the portal. There are all kinds of the best practices analyzers and performance analyzers and security analyzers that are there. Another person asked, when are we going to hear something about new SQL? That's a nice way to say NoSQL, I think. That's completely okay. But the idea there is that would be our Cosmos DB platform that you're thinking of. We do support like graph database queries inside SQL Server and so on, but Cosmos DB has a multi API that you definitely want to hear of. We've got some questions on statistics, and it says, wait, I'm only just recently hearing about this. You're saying we can tune the degree of parallelization? Oh my gosh, go look up and build and go look at the session that was held about an hour ago with Bob Ward and crew. He gives this incredible demo on the degree of parallelism and will blow your socks off on the way that works. And inside that demo's link, I give you the code for everything you have. Another question here about improvements on encryption strategy, data at rest. Absolutely, TDE on by default in some places, transparent data encryption, and others that's there. What about the statistics impact and query performance? We have tons of stuff there. So many things that we've got there. Is there a way to work with SQL like the Gremlin API? Absolutely. We have a graph database query language built right into SQL now. Significant amount of data growth. We need to DWs. Should we consider more? We've got sizing guides for you and so on. So many great questions that we can't get to. We've got about 4 minutes left. Let me do this. Let's do a lightning round really quick. Darren, I want to get your favorite feature or sleeper feature in SQL Server 2022 or Azure that we've just announced. Go.
Oh, I don't. Favorite feature. How about the high availability and the ability to sort of use the cloud for high availability?
Yeah, that one's really cool. The ability now from Azure MI, Managed Instance, to be able to use Azure as a target for part of your HADR. And how about this? How about being able to back up a database in Azure and restore it on-prem and go the other way as well? Never been able to do that before. 2022, you can do that now. Great, fantastic. All right, David, same question.
I've already mentioned TempDB, practically erased TempDB issues in SQL Server 2022. I'm going to add for a sleeper hit, buffer pool parallel scan.
Okay.
Buffer scans have always been serial, right? So the bigger the machine, the more memory we have, the longer it takes to scan, even for really small scenarios such as creating a new database, failing over an availability group. It's on by default. All you have to go do is get to SQL Server 2022. We're seeing 90% improvement in many cases in just the terms of elapsed time. It's definitely a sleeper hit. Hey, if you don't know about it, things are just going to be faster from your experience as a consumer.
Wow, those are all really good. I'm going to come out with something that the folks on the phone may not be familiar with in our last couple of minutes here, and that is the ability to use object storage. What does that mean? SQL Server can now talk directly to object storage as if it's an MDF, a database file, meaning you can use S3. And I do mean the S3 that Amazon has, but S3 is actually an API that you can use locally. So now you have that whole idea of the big data clusters that we used to have available to you in a standard interface. Oh my gosh. Well, folks, we've only got about 30 or 40 seconds left. I want to thank our panelists here, Darren and David. It goes so quick. There's so many other questions in here that I really want to get to, but we're just out of time here. But I really appreciate your time today. Definitely stick around. We got today and tomorrow here at Build. Lots more that you can go learn. My head is exploding, and I can't wait to get on to the get one of those great new neural processor systems. And we got the stuff we've seen. We need to go to the call to action. So let's go right here to how you learn more. aka.ms SQL Server, SQL Server 2022, and Microsoft. Definitely check out the Intel Partners page. And thank you for coming today.